Hi, it's Thursday, November 14th, Friday, November 15th in the Philippines, and we have a few systems to talk about in the tropics worldwide. We have Tropical Storm Sara in the Caribbean, which is forecast to bring heavy rainfall to Central America over the next several days. We've also got a lot of systems active in the Pacific still. We're mainly watching Typhoon Manyi in the West Pacific, and this will be yet another storm that's going to hit the Philippines in the next few days. And we've also got our first system, or I guess second system technically, in the Southwest Indian Ocean of the season. And we're going to be watching this one. This one's Bheki as it comes southwest, and it may bring some impacts to islands like Rodrigues, Mauritius, and La Reunion in the long term. And we'll talk about this one briefly at the end of the video. So we've got a lot to go through, and let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start off with Sara. You can see it sitting here off the coastline of Central America. This is the coastline of Honduras and Nicaragua, and the center of circulation is off the coast here. And right now, the system is very disorganized, and this is a bit different to what models like the GFS had shown a couple of days ago. We talked about how there was quite a bit of uncertainty on exactly how strong the system was going to get, and the main uncertainty with that was how much land interaction were we going to get. And while it is true we aren't getting the system directly over Central America, just being in this proximity of the landmass can cause disruption, especially because we have high terrain here, which once winds come down those slopes, it's called downsloping, that can be a feed of dry air that can get into the storm. And you can maybe see some impacts of that. Mainly we have convection on the western and northern sides, the eastern side not so much, and that might be some impact of that downsloping taking place. But also the system center is not too far from the coast. We can see it here on recon data moving northwest. That is important for the future. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but we aren't too far from the coastline of Central America. And this is much different to what models like the GFS were showing in a scenario where the system got very strong. In those scenarios, we had the storm get, more northeast than it is right now, and then it just meandered out here in the central Caribbean and then intensified and then went further out to sea. But we're already closer to the landmass, and as a result of this, we've seen models come back significantly on their forecasts, not showing much of a stronger storm. Though, importantly, this is going to be a disastrous storm either way because we have a lot of moisture being pushed right into the high terrain in Honduras. And unfortunately, this area of the world is very prone to flash flooding and mudslides. And the expectation is that heavy rainfall could lead to catastrophic flooding in this area, regardless of intensity. Tropical storm or hurricane, we could be looking at a catastrophic event here in Central America. And of course, thoughts are with everyone being impacted by this storm over the next few days. Now, I mentioned this northwestward motion. This is a little bit different than models have been showing. Some models lately have been trying to show it just stalling and maybe moving a bit south here towards the coast over the next few days, but now we're moving northwest as confirmed by recon. We'll have to see if this does sustain, as if it is able to pull enough away, the environment is favorable for the system to intensify, and this could become a concern for increased wind impacts, particularly in Mexico and Belize further west, as that's where the system is tracking generally. And you can see this on the Hurricane Center forecast, a very slow movement over the next few days, but generally getting westwards towards Belize and Mexico. And if it is able to lift far enough north, there is that potential that we see intensification, perhaps close to hurricane intensity, as it gets towards the coastline of Belize and Mexico. Though, like I said, regardless, heavy rainfall is likely across a widespread area across Central America and even extending into Mexico, Belize, and Guatemala as the system pushes through. You can see this on the forecast from the Weather Prediction Center. Unfortunately, local amounts may exceed 20 inches here on the north coast of Honduras, but we're looking at a widespread 12 to 16 inch rainfall. That's 300 to 400 millimeters of rainfall across this area and right into some of the highest terrain we have here in Central America. And you can see this is also extending into Mexico and Belize. This will extend further west, of course, as the forecast goes forward in time. And we'll see those forecasts cover more of this area over the next few days. Now, you see the system does enter the Gulf of Mexico by the end of this forecast. The expectation is that it will be gaining latitude. We talked about it a few days ago. We're going to have a trough in the southwestern U.S., and it will be setting the western edge of a ridge further north over the western Atlantic and Florida, and this will tend to get the system to gain latitude. But the good news is, for anyone worried about it in the Gulf Coast, with it being mid-November, the subtropical jet is very strong this time of year. And if this tries to get far north, it's likely just going to get sheared apart. There have been some models that have tried to show the system gaining a little bit of intensity as it comes northeast, but I find that a bit hard to believe with this system dealing with so much land interaction. It's going to be so broad, and with the subtropical jet so strong this time of year, I don't think we're going to get anything too strong. If we do get something intensifying, it'll probably just be up to a tropical storm, nothing more than that. And we're not looking at this time at any hurricane threat to the Gulf Coast. Hopefully for the rest of hurricane season, this should be, one of our final systems of the hurricane season, we can hope. Hopefully we won't see any surprises in December, but still, thoughts with everyone here in Central America as Sara continues west. But we're not done with all the tropical systems. We're in a very active period, especially in the West Pacific. In the Philippines, you just got hit by Super Typhoon Usagi. Unfortunately, that system went through a very quick phase of intensification before landfall yesterday in the northern Philippines. And hopefully the damage was not too bad there, but I know we've just been hit by 2 other typhoons before this, so I'd imagine we're just tired of it here now in the northern Philippines. But I wish I could say that was it, but we do have yet another storm active out there. We have Typhoon Manyi, which is forecast to intensify very strongly as it gets towards the Philippines, and this may be, unfortunately, one of the stronger storms that we have out of this train of storms hitting the Philippines. As hard as that is to believe. You can see if we look at the close-up loop of our storm, the system is developing an inner core structure. It's forming its eye. It's getting that curved band look as well. If I pause this at the end, you can see this curved band on the south side spiraling into what could be that eye in that little hole there in the convection that you see in the storm center. And you can see if we look at microwave data that this is beginning to try and close off its eye and eye wall structure. This was from way earlier last night. I'd imagine we've got much more progress on this eye and eye wall structure since then, and models are showing that the system is really poised to strengthen once it gets this structure built. And the main reason being is that the environment is very favorable for this. We have an upper level high pressure system draped right over it. We talked about a couple of days ago if we could see potentially some northerly shear from the high pressure system that was being influenced a bit by Usagi. Unfortunately, this system is far enough south that it's really not feeling the impacts of that. If you look here, way north of the storm, we do see some northerly flow from that high pressure system east of Usagi, but Manyi is far enough south to where this is not really impacting the system really at all. And this is leaving the system with a low shear environment, and the waters are still very warm here. One thing that the system also has going for it, being further south, is that it's tracking south of where Yingxing, Taraji, and Usagi tracked. Those all tracked more into northern Philippines. We're looking here a little bit further south, say along the latitude of Manila in the Philippines. So it's got, very warm water that has not really been tapped into by the other 3 typhoons we've been hit by. And you can see on the GFS the quick intensification that it's expecting, that pressure going way down below 960 millibars. That would be a very strong typhoon here, and there is a possibility that we have this system becoming a super typhoon, and that in fact that is forecast by Pagasa. You can see on their forecast as it just entered their area of responsibility, expecting quick to rapid intensification into a super typhoon before landfall sometime on Sunday on the current forecast. And you can see it gaining a little bit of latitude, but importantly, it's avoiding most of the upwelled waters that's in this region from our past 3 typhoons. So it's got plenty of fuel to work with here. And unfortunately, this is going to be yet another significant typhoon hit for the northern Philippines. And of course, thoughts are with everyone being hit by all of these storms. And the good news is, after Manyi passes, this will be it. There is no other storm behind Manyi. We seem to be going into a quieter period, at least for the next week after Manyi. It still remains to be seen, of course, in the long range. We'll see how the forecast in long range goes. But hopefully we can luck out and get away with no other typhoon hits the rest of this typhoon season, which runs through the end of the year. But I'll have more videos on this one as it does come west as well. Now onto our final system for today. We have Tropical Cyclone Bheki in the southwestern Indian Ocean. This is our second system named in the southwestern Indian Ocean this cyclone season, which I don't think the season has officially started. I think that starts maybe today. I think it starts on November 15th for the southwestern Indian Ocean. But if you're wondering, we had our first named storm a couple of months ago, I believe, maybe in October or September. And that was a weak storm that stayed out to sea. But this is Tropical Cyclone Bheki, and this system could get close to the islands of Rodrigues, Mauritius, and La Reunion as it tracks generally southwest over the next few days. Now, right now, the system is dealing with some easterly shear. You can see a lot of easterly flow aloft coming towards the system's center right now. And right now, the system is moving not fully southwest yet. It will be doing that in the future, but it's moving more southerly, and this is causing the shear to have more of a significant impact on the storm. So we're not really seeing a very quick intensification rate for this system. Now, as the system does begin to turn southwest, it will be more aligned with this shear vector, and that will in turn cause the wind shear to lighten a little bit, and that will allow the system to intensify perhaps to cyclone intensity. And you can see this as we go in time on the GFS. You can see it begins to move southwest, more in line with this easterly flow aloft, and this is going to lower wind shear, and you can start to see the system intensifying with that pressure value falling on the model. It does fluctuate a bit, but in general, we do decrease that pressure value, and as that pressure falls, of course, the winds increase, and you get the system to intensify. Now, you do see on this forecast that it's staying north of Rodrigues on this forecast, and eventually it does stay north of Mauritius and La Reunion, but certainly this is a close call for these islands, and this is uncomfortably close to these islands. And we'll have to see exactly how the forecast goes, especially towards the latter half of the forecast. You can see as we get towards, a week out, this would be when it's getting close to Mauritius and La Reunion. We do have some troughing on this model near Madagascar, and this could, in theory, pull the system a little bit further south and could get the system closer to these islands. But this is pretty far out, so we're not fully sure on exactly what impacts we'll have in these islands. But this does serve as a good reminder for all these islands and even Madagascar too. It is really the start of cyclone season, and it's important to be prepared just in case a storm does come through your area. Have your cyclone preparedness kit ready. I always stress that at the start of cyclone season, and it's important to have. And you can see the current forecast from MFR shows generally what the GFS showed, keeping the system north of the islands. But you can see in this cone of uncertainty, this is showing where the system could track in the next 5 days. Rodrigues is within this cone, and we're out of the range here in Mauritius and La Reunion, but you are still potentially at risk. You can kind of see it. If this system does deviate a little bit further south on the initial forecast, then we're much further south coming towards these islands in the latter half of the forecast. So it's important to watch for. Now, you do see some weakening taking place on the model, or not on the model, on the forecast from MFR. We could potentially, if this trough comes in a little bit differently, we could get a little bit of increased shear. Now, you also see we do have an upper level high pressure system off towards the east. This is increasing some northerly shear onto the storm, so perhaps that could also play a role in weakening it a bit as it comes through, but still getting a severe tropical storm coming through that can lead to flash flooding, power outages, and damage across these islands if it were to come closer to these islands in reality. But we'll keep a watch on this one over the next few days as it comes south and southwest. That's all that I've got for all the systems active today. I'll have more videos on all of these throughout the rest of the week and through the weekend. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching.